All right.
You might be able to force it through.
The crowd of experts continues to grow with Bill England popping in.
I don't want to wreck the threads.
And we're running into our first detail.
They didn't have any.
The Wave Rover 650, a design based on my single-handed ocean voyages. She's small, light, but easy to build, and strong enough to cross any ocean. My name's Alan Mulholland, and this is the Wave Rover story. Well, it took nearly 6 hours to get the mast to this shape, which is, I would say, 90% of being perfectly round, and it's certainly good enough for the purposes I have in mind. So yesterday, the entire day was spent shaping the mast, and there were a few little repairs I had to make, some voids that needed filling, such as that. Also did this kind of cool shape at the bottom to make sure we have drainage. And yeah, it's in pretty good shape. So today I'm going to mount the mast truck, and I'll have to get a whole lot more done than just that because we are exactly 6 days away from launch. Let's just check out what's happening inside the boat because my good friend Steven is here, and Steven, well, he's working on the electrical. Hey, Steven.
Hello.
So it's day 6, and I can't actually get into the boat. The ladder's not here, so let's see. No, Steven has everything pulled apart, and for good reason. Can you grab the camera and just show what's happening?
Well, we are currently installing the VHF antenna, and most of the DC circuits are in place. The batteries, we got to make up the strap-in mechanism for that next. And yeah, we're just pulling along all this VHF cable to the stern pulpit. It's going well.
Excellent. All right, time to crack on with the mast. Thank you very much, Steven.
Cheers.
Well, I think I'm going to end the day here. This is the yard. It's all prepped. It'll just need to get S1 tomorrow. I fitted the actual yard fitting as well, and I've filled it with epoxy. We'll drill that out for screws tomorrow. I've made some calculations on the motor and what the setback is from the transom, and I'm gluing up a bracket. I'm using the water, so those are 10 liters each, which is approximately, well, 10 liters, it's 10 kilograms or 22 pounds times 4, so it's a fair bit of weight, and that's what I'm using to laminate 2 layers of our 3/8 ply. And in addition to that, we've got the first coat of paint on the tiller, and Steven has been inside. He just left, and he got almost all of the wiring done on the boat. The mast is painted with the first coat of S1, and the masthead fitting has been fitted on, and it has a nice seal of epoxy on sealing it around, so it's we shouldn't ever have a condensation problem at that point. And also, this is the yard fitting. I've painted it, so it'll be going on tomorrow. All right, time to hit the hay. So last night before sunset, or right around sunset, we managed to use the laser level to get the water line reestablished on the boat, and we're going to get the bottom paint on just as soon as she gets dry. It's already been prepped last week. We have 5 full days before launch, and we should be able to get 2 coats of bottom paint on today, because we only have today and tomorrow of good weather, and then we're back into showers. And we're getting the second coat of S1 on the mast. And this morning I finished making the yard, which is the smaller piece of wood right here, shaping it for what I believe will fit the sail, and it's getting its first coat of S1. Now at the same time I can start working on the boom and the engine mount. So I've been thinking about it all last night, what I need to do to mount it and get my measurements right for the most practical position for that. I'm still working some of those details out, but I know I do need a little plinth or a block to thicken up the transom, and that's what we have here, and it should be dry, and I can unclamp that and shape it now. We have 5 days left to the launch, and we're putting the bottom paint on right now. And this is Total Boat Spartan, and we picked the color red, and it's kind of a traditional color. And so they give you the directions that you should pour half the tin into something else, and it's a good thing to do. We did that, and it's because there's about 2 inches of solids at the bottom, and it's really difficult to mix. But I've got it mixed up now, and then you pour the paint back into the tin and then just mix it all together. It's quite toxic, these paints, so you don't want to be spilling too much, and when you apply them, wear a Tyvek suit. Total Boat actually sends a kit. It's a Tyvek suit, it's a roller, a brush, paint tray. It's terrific, and I really want to thank them for their support. They've supplied all the paint for Wave Rover, and it's been a terrific product. So thank you, Total Boat. Well, it's kind of a special time. The paint is going on. How's it going on, Mrs. Rover?
Oh, fine so far. I just started.
Well, for me, it's back to building the spars. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. This is, it's always a special time when the bottom paint goes on. You know you're getting near the end. 'Kay, a little more sanding and this is done. Now let's go take a look at what Mrs. Rover has just done. Starting in on the rudder.
This has been sanded and wiped?
Yep, everything's been prepped.
Okay, great.
But look at this. Just have to imagine once we pull that tape, the nice crisp line that we'll have. Now she's beginning to look like a boat. Four days left until the launch. Going to try to get a second coat on the mast today. It's still pretty early. Great painting conditions. We're going to get another coat of bottom paint on the boat, and we'll be putting another coat of S1 on the two spars here. This is the yard and the boom, and I'm in the shop here and I'm working on the engine mount, which is right here. And this will have to get painted with S1 today as well, so that we can mount it to the transom of the boat. So I've had to make a decision on where to mount the bracket on the transom, so I think I've come up with what I'm doing. First of all, I'm making a bracket that is going to let me get out of the frame there. That'll thicken up the transom. The transom is 3/4 of an inch, and that little plate is another 3/4, so that gives us 1.5 inches. And the paint is going on the bottom as we speak. And we can remove these beams pretty much at any time because we'll be putting cribbing under the boat for transport. It's just Mrs. Rover doesn't want to get under the boat while the beams are not there. It's a safety thing. Anyway, here's the spot. You can just make out right here. And so it's 18 inches off center. It will clear the rudder and the trim tab, but and not by a whole lot. But this is a good spot, and there's structure in the boat. So there's a longitudinal bulkhead that runs right about here, and there's also a sort of call it a crash bulkhead that runs just like this. So we're bolted above and below, which will make for sort of a tight space to get this bolted on. But it's the kind of thing you bolt on and don't come back to. So I'll have to carry on now. The idea is I've over drilled these. The instructions for the mount say they want 3/8 holes. These holes are 3/4 of an inch, and we'll be filling those and then drilling them out. Now that was very satisfying, removing the tape. We could cross that job off the list. She is now, the bottom paint is complete. In fact, the paint on the boat is now complete. Well, it's Wednesday. I have 3 full days left to the launch. A bit of a setback this morning in the sense that it's raining and we can't get any painting done. Last night, with all the spare time I have, I glued up these reinforcement pieces on the battens. These are the battens that I'll be taking. They stretch the junk sail out and keep it expanded. So what I've done is I've glued these pieces on. I've started shaping this one. You can kind of get a feeling for what it will look like. I just need to taper the ends in now. Anyway, that's what I'll be doing this morning. This should strengthen the battens at what is typically a weak point on the battens, on the wooden battens. Well, the sun has come out, and I'm installing the GPS antenna right now, and then we'll have to route that wire all the way up forward to the AIS unit. And my good friend Stephen came here after work, and he's giving me a hand.
Good day, folks.
Well, this is the last full day before launch. It's Friday the 28th. And yesterday I filmed absolutely nothing because of the madness of the boat building. But I will show you what we did accomplish, and a fair amount was accomplished. But there's going to be a big push to get everything done today. I have to work on the rudder, get that all sorted out, finish the electrical connections, and of course crib up the boat underneath and strap it down and have it ready to go, because tomorrow morning at 6:06:00 we'll be pulling the boat out of the yard and taking it to Charlottetown. So you can just see some wires hanging down. We still have to connect up the VHF antenna, but The trick is to make sure that all these connections going through the deck are waterproof. So we had heavy dew last night, and you can see the mast is all covered, but the nice thing is we got 3 coats of white and 2 coats of S1 under that on the mast, except that yesterday I had to make a revision to this, which is a bolt will be going through there. It's really a way of holding the mast down. You might be thinking, why does the mast need to be held down? Wouldn't weight and compression. But it's if the boat is in rough weather and the boat is bouncing. So we've got 1 coat of S1. It's an important area to make sure it's sealed really well. So Mrs. Rover is going to get a 2nd coat of S1. Meanwhile, we have Stephen here, and Stephen is taking the scaffold down. Morning, Stephen.
Morning.
Less than 24 hours before we're heading down the road.
It is exciting.
Wow. And this is the first glimpse of Wave Rover that we're seeing sort of unobstructed. Now we have just a little bit of weight on the after scaffold here, and we'll leave that set up for another little while until we can set up some cribbing and then start strapping her down. But boy, look at that. That's a nice look. Well, you're probably saying, okay, Alan, what are you doing? Well, I'm heading back to the shop here. We have a few critical items left, and setting up the rudder is one of them. So I have to assemble the rudder now. There's all kinds of bearings that I have to assemble, attachments for the tiller, and of course matching up the trim tab to the rudder itself. I also have to attach the engine mount, which is still on the wall over here, to the boat itself. I've done a lot of prep for that over the last couple of days. So this is the before shot. So this is stainless steel, 316 stainless steel, 1/8 of an inch thick. It'll be part of the attachment point for the tiller and also a control point for the Mark III Mini. It's been sandblasted, that's why it has that sort of coarse effect, but we're going to try to polish that up a little bit. We don't have a lot of time remaining, but we have enough time to do a little bit of polishing. So this is the after effect of a little bit of polishing, not a lot. We are sort of an adventure workboat, pocket cruiser. Well, there we go. The trim tab is installed, and the brackets for the tiller are installed, and also I've drilled a hole here at the top that lines up like that, and you can drop a bolt in there and that'll lock the trim tab in place for when you're going astern or doing some tight maneuvering. So anyway, I'll just operate it from the top here. Just very, very little friction, and she's turning quite nicely, and she's well centered on the rudder. All right, let's cross this off the list and get on to the next project. The Wave Rover solar power station is just about to go online. Should be producing enough power to sustain a small village, and by small I mean a miniature village, like a doll's house or something. But Stephen, do you have anything to say?
No, it's going very straightforward. These 3-in-1 connectors were just the right thing to combine all 3 panels into one cable.
Okay.
So it's going to go very nicely.
It's 5:30 in the morning. I've been up about half an hour. It's the day of the launch. We still have to get the mast onto the trailer, but all the scaffold has been put away. The cribbing has been made. We still have to secure it, and we still have to strap down the boat. We have the truck arriving in half an hour at 6 o'clock. Well, join me in a couple of days for part 2, where we dispatch a special technical unit from the Rover Navy to deal with this problem, and we move from Operation What Could Possibly Go Wrong to Operation We Got This.